And so I have an amazing person. I've actually had the chance to edit a lot of her content and been with her for a lot of her video content journey, so to say. And I'm having Stefanie Lugo here on the XYZ.
I hated everything about my industry before I joined it. We quickly found that real estate is like the hardest industry to be consistently successful and profitable in. Virality doesn't always pay.
If you're posting a ton of memes on a page of where you're wanting to talk about something else, if one of those memes goes viral, how are you cashing in on it if it's not going to go towards that altogether goal?
Yeah, you can create all the actionable tips in the world, but if you're acting like Dr. Google, like
Yeah.
you're not giving yourself the chance to let your passion shine through. And I think that that's really important for people to see. Like, people don't want to just be talked at. We're creating for two reasons. We're creating to serve, and we're creating to
Welcome to the XYZ with myself, Zeke Rumpel. And so I have another awesome guest here today to kind of fill in the blank of the XYZ. And if you don't know what that is, it's pretty much on social media, we see the end product a lot of times, the glamour, whatever that may be. And I want to fill in that blank of how did they get to that? So what is the XYZ to get to your business that you're building or the YouTube channel you're trying to build up to for subscribers or whatever it may be? And so I have an amazing person. I've actually had the chance to edit a lot of her content and been with her for a lot of her video content journey, so to say. And I'm having Stefanie Lugo here on the XYZ. Why don't you give like two sentences of like the most interesting thing about you?
The most interesting thing about me is that I hated everything about my industry before I joined it
Hmm.
and had to find a way to fall in love with it because it was sort of a you made your bed, now lie in it situation. So I guess a little bit of like where I came to be. Currently, I am a real estate agent, and
Okay.
a big part of that is also coaching other real estate agents in the way that I do business with my husband. This started about 10 years ago. It was kind of that classic, like flipping the bird to the corporate life, left our
Nice.
9 to 5, wanted to do our own thing, and real estate seemed like a really easy and fun way to make a good living. And we quickly found that real estate is like the hardest industry to be consistently successful and profitable in.
Mm.
And you have to just eat a lot of just crap in real
You
estate.
could say. You
I don't
can-
get
Yeah.
it. You do though. You really
Okay.
have to just like do a lot of the things that you don't want to freaking do.
Mm.
And we had to find a way to make it sustainable for us because we're sitting there thinking like 3 years into the business, wow, every year it's like starting over again. How do we continue to make a good living in this world of entrepreneurship, like which is real estate? You are your own business owner. While doing things that still feel good and out of service and out of connecting with other people instead of falling into what a lot of perceive as real estate being like a salesy, slimy trap.
Yeah.
That's like taking advantage of the consumer. That was not what we got into real estate for. And so we had to find a way to really learn how to love this business that we chose to get into. And we decided to really go all in on social media and video to help grow our
Gotcha.
audience, grow our brand, and continue to connecting with people in an authentic way that would still work for us in the background, even while we weren't actively producing. So what that means is like, how could we create video? How could we create a digital brand that's going to continue connecting with people, even if it's at like 3 in the morning and we're not actively working?
Totally. And I would say even beforehand, we saw, I think that's my notifications on one of my many computers. Let
It's
me
okay.
mute that. um, actually, a love thing about these watches is that you can actually just do it here, which is
I keep
amazing.
learning all these crazy things with the Apple Watches, and I'm like,
I
what?
still learn new things, like especially like I just now started using like the theater mode in my watch. So you can
What's
have like
that?
if you're in a movie theater, you can have like it's like the faces in like the quick menu next to do not disturb. So like it'll like
Oh,
give you
yeah.
notifications, so it just keeps it dark.
Oh,
Yeah. You're seeing Dune 2
okay. I
later.
am. I am
So
super excited about it.
yeah, it's one I'm gonna go on record. It's probably the best movie I've seen in the past decade. So
So
if you don't
excited.
like it, it's okay. I understand. I think I did a
I have
review.
not heard one person not like it.
Okay, that's good to hear. because I was worried about it. My wife didn't like it as much as she thought she wanted to.
Okay.
But you know, with spouses, sometimes when your spouse is like super up in arms about something, they're like, it's not that great.
You
They
gotta
just
like
want to
bring
be
him down
devil's
a notch.
advocate, just because. Um, anyways, back to what we were talking about. So I want to say, so you started down this road of video content, but I remember actually looking at your your YouTube channel before I started editing for it. And you did like a lot of really good YouTube videos about real estate and on
Yeah.
Instagram specifically. But before that, you did those honeymoon videos that actually popped off for being travel vlogs that a lot of people aspire to be. And they actually did really well. I never asked you this question, so I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Why do you think those went well? And then was that kind of like the dynamite that kind of pushed you in the direction of like, we should do more video?
I mean, I can give you like the high level version of the question or
Sure.
the very meta like answer to
Give
the
me both.
question.
I want them
Okay.
both.
High level is fun, aspirational, easy for anyone to watch. It was
Gotcha.
very broad, top of funnel content that wasn't targeted towards any one niche or audience.
Mm-hmm.
It was just something that's fun and entertaining, which is great for YouTube, right? And what these were was Bryce and I love travel. My husband
Okay.
and I love travel, and that's part of why we wanted to get into just being our own our own boss, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak, because we want the freedom and flexibility to be able to travel and go do things. And so when we got married, we had our honeymoon at this all inclusive in the Caribbean. And they have this whole chain of different resorts. It's like a family of resorts on the different islands of the Caribbean.
Okay.
They have a bunch of different locations.
Like
And
sandals or something like
yeah,
that? Okay.
yeah. And so the people who get into that world, like it's kind of like a bucket list thing where they want to go to every single
Everyone.
resort. And so what they do, and even if they're not doing that, a lot of people are going there for honeymoons. And so this is going to be like the biggest trip of their lifetime or in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
And so they're trying to learn like, okay, is this like we've only got one shot at this. Is this the right resort for us? And so they love looking at the reviews of different resorts and like all the
Okay.
different activities, and they want to know if it really looks the way it does on the website. And so Bryce and I had this idea of like, wow, wouldn't it be so cool to also kind of have like not a side gig, but a side part of our brand of like just sharing like our travel experiences, because that's something that we're really passionate about. And it just it was super fun. And over time, those have continued to like perform well, and I still get a lot of
Yeah.
views on them, which is super funny. But it doesn't do anything. Like
Yeah.
it's one of those things where it was an interesting lesson to learn that virality doesn't always pay. And
Mm.
in fact, my most viral videos, because I had another video on Instagram recently that I was telling you about that got like 13 million views. They don't do anything for you if they're not targeted to the right audience. And more often than not, like virality and high views can damage your personal brand more than support it. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, I think like right now I'm seeing that a lot with YouTube Shorts. Like I feel like every week I'm like telling my clients we need to be doing more YouTube Shorts, and then one week I'm like these are like hurting your click through rate.
Yeah.
They're what's the word? They're skewing your results and your analytics and stuff like that. So I think that I think as new content is always being released and people are always refreshing what they want to talk about, there's always a little bit of that, and the danger of what something you want something to go viral, but a lot of times people don't have that things in place to capitalize on
Right.
what that virality was. So like if you're posting a ton of memes on a page of where you're wanting to talk about something else, if one of those memes goes viral, how are you cashing in on it if it's not going to go towards that altogether goal?
Yeah.
Like if you're a dog trainer and you made a meme about Dune, like how is that going to connect?
Right, and I think that a lot of people assume that the views will pay you, but even if you're on YouTube and you're monetizing through AdSense or whatever, like it is did you see that viral clip from Snoop? And he
Eh,
was saying how, man, I was looking at Spotify and it was my most
Oh
listened
yeah.
to stream, and it paid me $80,000. So he had something like millions of streams
Yeah.
on one of his most popular tracks. And I think the lifetime value of that was $80,000. And it's like, that might sound like that is a lot of money objectively, But if you're looking to really cash in and make a legacy business and brand, like that's not going to do it. You have to have a way, like you say, to capture attention and monetize it. That's why we see so many of these really big creators on TikTok or even on Instagram and on YouTube that have massive audiences, but no way to monetize it.
Yeah.
And then once they do try to monetize it, it looks like a cash grab and they alienate their most important
Hmm.
followers.
That transition needs to be really delicate, which is
Yeah,
why I help people do podcasts because I think that's a great way to do it
it is.
because it increases your curiosity and it also, you know, will give you what's the word, more return on less investment. I think when it comes to time and resources and all that. Anyways, we'll go down that rabbit hole another day because I'm always talking about podcasts on whatever content I'm on or whatever platform I'm on.
It's a relevant conversation for
It
sure.
is definitely. And I love that the algorithms are actually swaying back into long form content. I mean, I've always watched video game streamers since I was in high school. And so I've always kind of known of like these people are like getting to know their viewers instantly. Because if you just watch an all day stream, I know everything about Dr. Disrespect or Tim the Tam and some of these names that are on it. And I'm like, why isn't other industries capitalizing on it? And then I start seeing all these podcast clips, all these different
Yeah.
platforms, and I'm like, there it is. Someone connected it. Not to saying I was behind it because I didn't put any into action, but I was thinking about it. Um, but I would argue this though, back to your travel videos. I do think that actually, maybe one day you could reach back into increasing travel into your brand because I do think that actually, if somebody gets really obsessed with you, because this happens a lot on any platform,
Yeah.
specifically YouTube. If they start just like binging all your videos,
Yeah.
they'll go back and all the way back to your journey. She goes, "Oh, so this person was doing a lot of travel back then and their honeymoon videos and it kind of connects to um what your relationship between you and Bryce and why it's such a cornerstone to your real estate business and why it's helped you build your coaching business in a little bit. I think that it kind of does add to it in a way, not that it's like on a standalone thing that it's just like it's just there. I actually do think it helps you in a way somebody see your journey a little bit. Do you think
I
so?
yeah, I don't remove any of my videos on my channel. So, I mean, you could say the exact same thing about the real garbage videos that I put up when I was still
Yeah.
learning how to
Yeah.
film and edit my own videos, which was kind of a nightmare. Because I'm not a video editor. I don't have the a lot of people when they think about like, oh man, it's just another cost. I should be lean and mean. If I'm gonna create
Sure.
video, then I should be able to do it all by myself. But what you're missing is you're not saving the however much you're paying somebody to help you per video.
Mhm.
You're missing out on the years of experience that value gives you, right?
Yeah.
And so like the travel videos were very like what's the word when amateur?
Amateur, yeah. But you're trying
I'm like
something out.
I'm like, "What is that word when you don't know what you" it was amateur, they were, like, very amateur, and, then I started getting into more of the shorter form educational videos, where it's like, "Here's, like, 3 things that you need to do if you're gonna buy
Mhm.
a house," right? Those videos are so embarrassing.
Mm.
They are terrible. Half the time, my audio is not hooked up, so I'm, like, at my desk talking into a mic, and you can clearly like, see or hear that I forgot to turn the mic on,
Yep.
right? And
Common.
you can totally see that I'm, like, reading off of a script, right? A teleprompter, because I had to do that in when I was still learning. But I keep all of that stuff there because it is important for people to see, like, the entire journey. Like, there
Mm.
wasn't one day where I just hopped up on YouTube and, like, decided I knew everything there was to know about everything and started sharing it.
Sure.
I had to be that person who was posting every single week to 50 subscribers and just hoping that at one point it would pop off.
I love the idea that you're speaking to what is it? I try to tell this to a lot of people who are starting out that if you can't be excited about speaking to, the 5, 10 subscribers that you have, then you're never going to get to the talking to the big audience when you really truly care.
Yeah.
So, and you're at over 25,000 subscribers on YouTube, which is awesome, which is a huge accomplishment. I think the hardest to get over is probably, I'd say the first 1,000.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the hardest, and then the next big step is like probably 20,000.
Really? That's
Yeah,
cool.
I say you can get to 10,000 pretty quick because you get excited about the 1,000. You're like, keep going,
Right.
but and then 5,000 I think is also kind of hard. But I think 20, and then the next step is like 100.
Mhm.
And once you I'd say 100 every one of these is like a different ball game.
Yeah.
Um, like you said, you kind of have to keep refreshing your content and all that. So I know we're kind of helping, my company's kind of helping you shift your content strategy a little bit. We're in the middle of pivoting
Yeah.
a lot of different moving pieces. Can you tell me about a little bit of the new direction you're kind of heading in,
Yeah.
and do you think it's going to help your business altogether, your coaching business specifically, because that's kind of what you're in charge of?
Okay, I'm a big believer in transparency, especially when it comes to monetization.
Okay,
So I'm going to share like some specifics on that.
perfect.
So from when I had 10,000 subscribers, I started working with you when I had 2,000
Okay. Yeah,
maybe.
around there. I know you were over 1,000. So you're like, at
Yeah.
that time, I'm like, she's like one of our biggest clients because
I was like,
that time we weren't working with anybody big on YouTube because we were just doing podcasts at
right.
that point.
Well, and I was like, something's here. Like I'm starting to get clients with less like 1,000 people.
Sure.
Like that, I'm ready to invest, and I want to make this a thing. Like I'm going all in.
Hmm.
And I like you said, after a year and a half, got up to 10,000. I would say from 10,000 to 20,000. I don't think I saw a significant shift in my revenue. There was not a big like, oh, she went from 10 to 20, so she tripled her revenue. That did not happen.
Hmm.
That did not happen whatsoever. And so I just want to kind of put that out there because while it's super exciting, like again, it really comes down to the entire funnel. And I promise I have a point. So it's I'm looking at the entire funnel, and you're bringing in the audience from the higher level content that you're creating, like the top of the funnel, and then you're warming them up and then going in for the sale. So where I really struggle with is the sale
Gotcha.
because I am an educator at heart. I'm a coach, and most of my content at this point is coaching content. I'm teaching. I'm saying these are the things you need to do. And what I found was between 10,000 and 20,000 subs, I was still teaching, but I wasn't selling. And so
Mm.
because of that, I wasn't seeing a big increase in my revenue and in sales. I was seeing an increase in my brand credibility, absolutely, and obviously my audience was growing, which was fantastic. But I was creating content that was so instructional that my audience was good. They're like, you know what, this is free content. She's giving me so much value, and I'm busy implementing the tips that she's getting me, like
Mhm.
giving me. And what I was missing was that like deeper form of content, right? Which is why we started pivoting into the more long form podcast.
Okay.
And what I found that is going to allow us to do, and what the hope is, it's all an experiment,
Yeah.
right? Like it's always just
Every
being
content is an experiment.
it's always being creative and being curious, right? And so like how can we change things up a little bit? And after creating the same kind of content for years, we decided let's really shake it up and maybe pull out a little bit of the educational content, cut that amount in half, and really start filming more of that long form podcast style content, and then parsing it up for the other videos where we need like that medium to short form content, right? And again, like when you and I had that conversation and you kind of presented that to me, it made so much
Mm.
sense. And it also made me feel really excited about content again because how many times could you say like the 3 tips that you need to whatever?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
I'm tired of telling people what they need to do. They need to just do it. They have all the information on the internet. Like that's a big thing, I think, when it comes to content creation. Like there is so much information on the internet. How are you going to activate your audience?
Mm.
Like it's about how are you going to activate them to take action either on their own or reaching out to you for assistance so that again you can monetize the content that you're putting out. The other part of that too is like it's not just about creating content that sells, it's also about helping your audience be empowered to take action. Because what we find is when you're creating a lot of the same content over and over again, and now you have me on a soapbox. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry. I
no,
hope
you're
that
good.
this
This
is
is
still
good.
running.
I'm already like, there's so much to unpack here, like that we can talk really in
Well,
depth
that's
about a
what's
lot
so
of
cool
this.
about this content. We
Yeah,
can actually have a
yeah.
conversation about it. When you're creating the same kind of like 4 to 5 to 7 to 10 minute video, like you're just kind of heaping on ideas. And what you may find if you are in my position is your audience can't do a lot with that because they as soon as they like can process the first idea, you're posting the next idea and then the next idea if you're on the post schedule that I'm on. And I have some creators in my niche who post every single day, which is awesome, right?
Yeah.
And they're like bite-sized actionable posts, but at some point you have to have like the deeper conversation like this that shares you the why behind the action, that gives you real context behind what the possibilities are, to actually get them out of information gathering mode and to actually taking strides towards their goals. And I think that when you can do that with really well-crafted content, then you are actually able to not only establish your authority in your niche, but you're able to like inspire action, which people will always pay for, either in giving you their attention or giving you their money.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff there. Um, I think I talked a little about this in the solo podcast I recorded a couple days ago, where I kind of broke down other forms of media that you could be doing marketing wise, or building your following, whatever personal brand, whatever it may be. So I broke down like short form, medium form for YouTube videos, even like blog posts. I mentioned a little bit, and then I talked about the value of doing podcasts.
Mhm.
And you talked about a little bit of the subject matter of like burnout to an extent.
Yeah.
And I think what's really big on YouTube right now is like, why are all these YouTubers quitting? I feel like there's been a big influx of like all across like the gaming world to like the business world, and people just like, do I
Yeah.
want to keep making the same content? Because I see people on Instagram and YouTube that were at a point where posting maybe a video a day that was highly edited, and then on Instagram they're doing like 3 to 5 videos a day, which that's
No, that's
crazy. And if you're
nuts.
not building out the team to, which is hard to build a team and scale that,
Yeah.
is a whole nother thing you got to talk about, because you got to hire editors, you got to teach them how to do it, you got to teach people to find content in your content. It's a whole nother beast. But these people that are doing it for so long, they burn out and they're like, okay, do I want to keep doing this for the long term? And then, a lot of times they grow, their families grow, they find other responsibilities they want to take
Yeah.
on. And I think that you touched on that podcasting I think I mentioned a way out, and in the other episode, is that it could be a way out, so to say, of
Yeah.
diversifying um, what you're creating. And so it increases your curiosity,
Yeah.
because you can have conversations like we talked about doing for a second, in this manner. In a YouTube video, it's like, give me the 3 tips now and get out, which is great. It's
Yeah.
great for that type of content. Or like pros and cons moving to a certain city and get out,
Uh-huh.
you're in and out. And then short form, it's like, what's the most like crazy shock factor, and then putting it into a short. So what podcasting lets you do is it not only will give you that content to cut up, but it also will increase that ability for you to kind of, revive your passion to create a little bit. And I
Yeah.
think that you experience that a little bit, because you're like, I don't just have to talk about the same thing over and over and over again, even though some experts say you figure out what works, you just do that over and over and over again. You can't do that over a decade or 5 years or
You
whatever it
really
may be.
can't. You really can't, because like while your audience is constantly going through some kind of a churn, right? It like a churn rate is going to be a
Yeah,
factor of that for sure. You're
sure.
going to have people exiting the industry and people coming into the industry that you are trying to serve. That is going to happen, but at some point the consumer interest shifts, consumer
Yeah.
behavior shift. And so when you are a creator, you have to take responsibility for understanding when that happens and pivoting to meet the needs.
Yeah.
We're creating for two reasons. We're creating to serve, and we're creating to serve our own curiosity
Yeah.
factor, right? And so part of that too is like, yeah, you can create all the actionable tips in the world, but if you're acting like Dr. Google, like
Yeah.
you're not giving yourself the chance to let your passion shine through. And I think that that's really important for people to see. Like, people don't want to just be talked at. They don't want to be like preached at. They want to have a conversation. And one thing that you said is being able to shift that longer form content and really go more in depth. I think the other thing it allows you to do is it allows you to simplify, kind of like you were saying.
Yeah.
It does allow you to just kind of like scale back a little bit. But the key is it allows you to do that without sacrificing impact.
Yeah.
And you might actually see a huge return in everything, in client engagement, in the click through, in the people who are interested in buying your products, because now you're not just a preachy know it all telling people what to do or giving like the 3 new tips,
Sure.
trying to be clickbaity, which is helpful for sure. There's a purpose for that. But again, look at the funnel. Like, what are we doing with the funnel? If you're only creating that short form video designed for virality, you're never going to be able to extend the invitation for people to go deeper.
Mm.
Right, and I think that we have to be looking at it in that way and understanding what kind of content we're creating and how it's serving us.
Mm. And we also want to get paid too, because I
Absolutely.
think that something that we're also seeing a shift in is that there's so many, like, I was listening to a podcast this morning and they're talking about um, the joke that if you see a Facebook ad, it's just like, oh, it's just salesy, spammy. Like this person's just, there's so many ads that we see on a daily basis. And so one thing that I think the value of if you are trying to increase what you're trying to make financially, like let's say you want to sell, coaching, or you want to sell something as small as like something on Etsy, like like a PDF of like how to, I don't know, fold paper, I don't know, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Um, Doing ads works. Like that's a thing that's been around for a very long time. But you also are in a world that people want to know you beyond that wall
Yeah.
of your business. And I think that's why we've seen a huge increase of people saying you need to have a personal brand. You need to have a personal brand.
Yeah.
Um, and for people who are on YouTube and they're already kind of doing that, like a YouTube creator that already has like 100,000 subs, who already knows that they have a personal brand going, even though maybe their name isn't the name of the channel. That's still them. But I think that what a podcast or at least a long form piece of content can do is increase that, something that you say all the time is that what is it? The no like and trust factor, right?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You say that a lot in the real estate teaching world, but I think that goes for business altogether. I think that something that a long form video does is that you can just sit in the room and be a fly on the wall and to kind of listen to that person really deeply
Yeah.
about not just their expertise in something, but also you get to know a little bit about their passions and how they talk, how they communicate, what movies they like if they reference it, or how, their families. And like for you, you talk about reaching your target niche for not just real estate, but like let's say your real estate clients that maybe your husband works with, who works more on the real estate side. It's a lot of those move up buyers, and
Yeah.
it's families, and it's growing. And so to do that, you have to showcase that you have a family. Yeah, because you
Right.
want to relate with them. Showcase that you have kids. You want to showcase that you and your husband are married, and that you kind of went through the same experience that a lot of these other people want to go through. And a lot of times, it's really hard to do that, even though you do accomplish it through like carousel posts and um, a lot of other posting. Other people may have a hard time doing that because it takes a lot of work.
Mhm.
But what a podcast can do is help break that barrier pretty easily, because you're going to talk about what you love and what you've gone through and your experiences. And I think a podcast can really help people just pretty much get plugged in so much easier into that.
Yeah.
Would you agree on that?
I would. And the other part of it too that we can't forget is like we're talking a lot about the consumer facing side of things, right? How is our content interacting with the consumer or the audience? But we also have to consider how we are interacting with the content that we're creating.
Yeah.
And for a lot of business owners, when they think of content creation, they can't buy into it, even though it would hugely benefit their business. Like you take any really skilled business owner, like let's just use my niche, real estate agents. If we have a high producing real estate agent who's doing really well, who's mostly referral based, they're closing like 20 to 30 deals a year, which is like objectively a very high producer in most markets.
Yeah.
I mean, over 50% of realtors, and there's 1.5 million of them in the US, sold a deal or less
Okay.
last year. Okay, so like if you are closing deals consistently, you're among the 1% top producers in my industry. They are at risk of being passed over by the new fresh faces coming into the industry who have less experience,
Mm-hmm.
who have less care, who have less know-how, but who understand how to connect with their people on a deeper audience, or on a deeper level rather. And so most people know like multiple different realtors. Most people know multiple different lawyers. Most people know multiple different mechanics. Like it doesn't matter what it is. But the person who's going to win is the person who does a couple of things. Number one, like you said, really instills that know, like, and trust factor. But to do it, you have to buy into that. You have
Mm-hmm.
to understand the importance of articulating to them why they should hire you over your competition. And what podcasting allows you to do, or any form of content creation, really, but I would argue that long form content like podcasting allows you to do this a lot faster and more effectively and more efficiently. What it allows you to do is process and say the same thing over and over again until you absolutely nail it.
Ooh.
There's something that happens in long form content creation where we're having this
Yeah.
conversation. I am going to be better after this conversation because of you generously creating a platform for me to talk, because of the 30 minutes of time that I've been talking nonstop and being able to process these things that are really important to me, but sometimes I have a trouble writing them down on a blank page.
Mm.
And what that's gonna do is I'm gonna be able to take that onto the next video I create and have a higher sense of conviction, a smoother delivery, whether I'm creating content or whether I'm speaking to somebody face to face trying to get a new client. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I like the idea. It's kind of training you to be
Yeah,
a better communicator and at sales, marketing, whatever it may be for your business.
absolutely. And think about real estate agents right now. Like
Hmm.
again, my niche, I'm gonna talk about what I know,
Sure,
right?
sure, absolutely.
So real estate agents, let's say they're mostly referral based.
Okay.
Fantastic. They don't have to sell. They don't have to really even market because they have all these other, past clients and friends and family who know why they're the best doing it for them. They hear the word house and they say, you gotta reach out to the Lugos. They helped us buy and sell. They are
Mm.
amazing. Just trust me. I don't even know what they did well, but all I know is that I felt really good after the sale, and you're gonna feel really good too. Done. Like, there's no hard sell, and my job is to show up at that point and do what I do best.
Okay.
But what happens when I'm creating content and somebody sees a great video that looks polished and professional and it says three things you need to know before you buy and sell in Phoenix? Where is that factor of the person on their shoulder saying you've got to hire this person? You're not gonna get it in a 5-minute, like, in and out, quick
Yeah.
tip video. You're going to get it through your exposure to that person really going deep on these ideas that really matter, and the more you're having those conversations on this type of a format, the easier it's going to be. So, like, I think that we have to also be thinking of, like, how are we constantly sharpening the blade?
Mm.
Long form podcasting, like, there's not much of a better opportunity to do it than that.
Yeah, I think you also touched on something that kind of got my brain going. Is you talk about a content strategy because you mentioned that if you see a video that kind of instructs you about, information about what you to be aware of. Like the other day, I saw a loan officer here in the area that did a post about HELOC and all
Uh-huh.
that stuff, and because I eventually I want to do that move up eventually, and so I was like, oh, that's a great option. I don't know who that person was talking about. I saved it, the video, and then sent it to my wife, but we still had no interest in who that person was. It
Yeah.
was all about the information.
Oh my god,
And that was a 30
yes.
second spurt. And I was like, that was great knowledge. I don't care who that is. And so I think about that person's page. Let's say I go to it. That video probably performed really well.
Sure.
Could maybe like 500,000, a million if it's like doing, what it's supposed to be doing. But let's say the rest of their content was kind of the same thing or even more backed up. And maybe it was just like posts about other stats and why you should be doing certain things. They're only educating,
Yeah.
right? If there was nothing else to lean me in to be like, oh, this is maybe a scenario of why this person should be doing it, or even a deeper dive into maybe that video that I saw. I didn't see any clips of anything else other than that to supplement that
Mm.
and to lean me in more and cash me in as a maybe a community follower.
Yeah.
And so for people that are already content creating, which is probably a lot of people on this podcast, um, if you're just doing one thing, which is, the fun thing to do to get all the views, but if you're not doing anything else to lean people in, I think you're going to miss out, which we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, which was cashing on it. But from a content schedule perspective, there's a danger there if you're kind of the virality of it. That's a hard word to say.
Virality.
Virality.
Yeah.
Um,
But see, you're practicing because
I
you're
am.
doing
I
long
am.
form
I'm
content.
sharpening,
You're
which
sharpening the
I
blade.
love that point that you made. That podcasting, even though it may make you solid content, like if you're coming to
Yeah.
my studio, you're gonna get solid quality content. But it's also sharpening you, and I love the idea of
Yeah.
iron sharpens iron. you're gonna have a networking opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Continue circulating people onto your show, whether they're just people in your industry, could just be somebody like your even if like you want to go out your best friend, you know.
Yeah.
Talking on a microphone, you're gonna sharpen each other and
Uh-huh.
you're gonna get sharpened to again be better, but also increase that networking aspect of it because you're going to deeper dive. Like I'm getting to know you a lot better doing this and doing this interview, and understanding how you got to where you wanted to be. And I wouldn't have done that throughout a deep dive conversation podcast wise.
Mhm.
So, yeah, that was really. I just totally didn't think about that podcasting because I think we both have talked about this a little bit. We're both introverts in a way,
Yeah.
and
And we like to tinker. We
yes,
get really passionate about
about
something and
tinkering.
we just like to
I can't
tinker.
tell you
Yeah.
how many times my studio has moved around. Every time somebody
Yeah.
comes in, it's like maybe a little different and maybe
Well, I just
majorly
came in and
different.
I'm like, okay, give me the tour. I've
Yeah,
been here.
it's always
I've been
it's
here
always
20
very different.
times, but give me the tour.
Exactly. I think I'd be if I went down the W2 route, I'd be a great just studio manager because I'd be like, oh, I just want to make sure everything is
Yeah.
perfect always, and that would be like my full time. It's so satisfying. But of course, I'm called to be a little bit better
Yeah.
and more not
Different.
better, but different.
Yeah. You're
Achieve
called down
more.
a different
Yeah.
route.
But we're both introverts to that way, and we love tinkering with things. How have you overcome? Actually, well, I would say podcasting probably has helped you probably overcome a little bit of that and how to communicate better on camera, even though you didn't do podcasts for the first couple years of content creating, right?
I don't know. I because I'm very introverted, I can compartmentalize
Okay.
really well. So and I had to learn that. So like the first time that I did video, I have to so I have to tell this story.
Tell it. Tell it.
When we got into real estate, okay, it was 2014, 2015, okay? And when you get into real estate, you don't know jack shit about anything. Like,
Okay.
yes, you have to take all the hours of like the classes, you have to pass the
Which
test.
I've heard is complete. You won't use any of it.
You won't use any of it. It is less helpful to your success than like a generic communications degree that can be used anywhere, right?
Okay.
Like it is so
Interesting.
which I am a college dropout, so I don't have anything, like, it's not like I can even say
Totally.
anything about it.
Most entrepreneurs and business owners are
Oh
these
yeah.
days. So it's kind of
I'm like
funny.
the poster child
Yeah.
for like quit it and move on to something else. So we get into real estate,
Okay.
right? And we like show up and we're like, okay, where's the houses to sell? It's not like that at all.
Mhm.
And so we found we connected with this more seasoned professional,
Mhm.
more seasoned real estate agent. At the time, he was probably in his 50s. And I'm sorry, Rick. I don't know how old you were. It was Rick McCone.
Okay.
Rick McCone, you should check him out. He's an incredible YouTuber.
Rick, I'm gonna come subscribe.
Yeah, definitely check him out. He for anyone of that generation who's like, I'm too old to film, or I don't know how to learn something new, go follow Rick and then talk to me, because
Mm.
this guy is curious and creative, and he comes up with new things and he tries them. And it's not to
Wow.
like he's so like, definitely check him out. He goes
Where's he
live on
located? Is he
here.
Is he
He's
here?
here. And he goes live on YouTube every single day.
Oh,
And he just live
awesome.
stream. I know. And he just talks about the market. And his live streams have like over 1,000 views in 3 hours. Like
Dude.
I'm not kidding. But he was consistent and he's always been just curious. And so he taught us how to do the point of my thing. He taught us how to do an open house, right? And so we show up day one and we meet him. He's in our brokerage. And like we really connected with him, and he really kind of took us under his wing and like showed us the ropes.
Okay.
So he teaches us how to do our first open house. He teaches us how to do a lot of like those first things, in terms of like how to get clients as a real estate agent. And because he has this passion for filming, he's like, you guys really need to do video. And at the time, it's like 2014, 2015. This is almost 10 years ago now. And we're like, what are you talking about, Rick? Like, what? I don't like
Mhm.
video for what, for who, like, what does this look like? And so at the time, Facebook streaming was just getting up to be a big thing. Like Facebook Live, creating video and posting it to Facebook was really catching on. And so he said, look, I'm going to set up a green screen in the office. I'm going to set up my camera. All you guys have to do is just show up and like, let's just have fun with it. And so he taught us how to do video for the first time and how to
Wow.
like stand there and do video. And we had some other people who were getting into it at that time too who helped us, but, the first experience we had was with Rick kinda showing us, like, what it could look like. And so I'm introverted, I don't wanna do any
Yeah.
of this, but I'm really good at compartmentalizing.
Mhm.
Um, and so he goes, "Okay, 3, 2, 1, and then now we're gonna hit record," and I was just able to, shift into that persona. It's like Sasha Fierce with Beyonce, only I'm not Beyonce at all,
Okay.
or Fierce or Sasha.
Yeah.
I'm more like just, okay, boom. And I like move into like that alternate persona. And I was like, okay, now I'm speaking to the camera. And like this is just me having a conversation, like super
Mhm.
dialed in. And I didn't know that I could do that. Like I had
Mm.
no idea that I was able to just like turn on my like film talking face, but I'm really good at that. Like, I am really good at turning off, like, the inner dialogue, and it's because, like, at that point, we were committed. We were gonna do whatever it took. And if it meant, like, learning how to come on video because, be on video and talk and have a conversation, and if that was gonna be my ticket not to cold call or swindle people out of their homes because that was disgusting to me, like,
Yeah.
that was what I was gonna do. And so part of it is taking a little bit of responsibility over your business and deciding this is what I need to do to be successful. I'm going to turn off that inner critic because it doesn't know anything, anyways.
Sure.
And I'm just going to be curious about how this goes. And so that's when I started really creating YouTube videos for real estate
Okay.
on my channel. And so, like, we had this experience with Rick. This was probably 2016 now, 2015, 2016. I start creating YouTube videos and I was doing them by myself. And it was like kind of a disaster. It was not good. It was like really embarrassing, like I said. But I'm creating them, I'm putting them up on YouTube. And I start sharing a little bit of what I'm finding with other real estate agents. And I shared one video where I was talking about Instagram because at the time, what we were really producing well with was Instagram.
Okay.
Like we were earning multiple six figures GCI on Instagram alone,
Wow.
just not from paying ads, not from doing anything, but just like documenting what we were doing in our business and getting clients organically that way.
Mhm.
And, it was fantastic, like, such a beautiful way of just connecting with real people and doing business, and so I thought, like, "How can I transfer this to YouTube and just kinda, like, scale out a little bit?" And so I started sharing a little bit about what we were doing, with other real estate agents, and, one video popped off, and it got, like, 1,000 or 2,000 views, and I was like, "Whoa!" Like, at the time, I was like,
Yeah.
"This is amazing!"
Mhm.
And now it's, like, it still gets views, like, all
Yeah.
these years later and stuff. But that's when I was like, "You know what? I need to go, like, even deeper," because, like, I'm halfway trying right now. It's still uncomfortable. It's not fun. Like, I would dread filming days because I was doing it all myself.
Yeah.
I'd kick Bryce out of the house. I'd say, "Go show houses or whatever you're doing today. I'm gonna film." And I would set up my DSLR and my teleprompter, and I would put myself in my kitchen, and I would just, like, have conversations and with the camera, and I would film those, I would edit them and put them up, and it would take me, like, 8 to 10 hours. The most dreadful part was actually filming because I'm introverted, right?
Yeah.
But, like, the tinkering part was super fun, and I
Yeah.
was, like, having a lot of fun with it even though it was terrible.
Yeah.
The end product was just, like, laughable. I don't know how, like, people started following me on Instagram because, like, some of that I
You're
guess the
probably
content was
communicating
good.
well.
The content was good, right? So,
Yeah.
like, it didn't even matter that, like, the production value was absolute, like,
Yeah.
garbage. But the content was good. I was connecting with people, and that's when I was like, "Okay, I need to actually take this seriously. In order for me to be consistent and take it seriously, I've gotta hire somebody," and that's when I hired you.
So one thing about podcasting that I love, and we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, but and I said it in many different ways, but it's the value of return on investment
Yeah.
when it comes to not so much the exact ROI, but when it comes to your time, your energy, all that stuff, because you get a lot out of a podcast, like we've already discussed. And we both have families, and I think that podcasting can be a really great way to balance your life out a little bit. And uh, for me, if I wanted to do YouTube videos right now and teach how to set up microphones or do all these things and create these highly edited videos, because I think if you're doing YouTube videos, they probably need to be retention based, so they need a lot
Mhm.
more work to it because someone's going to sit and watch it versus just listen. Uh, that's gonna be a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's gonna be a lot. And where I gotta hire an editor, and that's some more time, energy to teach editor and resources to go towards that. And so it's one thing that podcasts do is they do open that can of worms of like, oh, I can get a little bit more out of this and be home to like pick up my kids from school and say goodnight and um stuff like that. So I think this is the greatest benefit actually of doing a podcast is it lets you have a personal life if you add it to your strategy and maybe like replace it with some really intense filming aspects
Yeah.
or the grind of like creating 3 shorts a day or going out and filming like cinematic b-roll somewhere. Podcasts just kind of force you to just sit and get it done in like an hour or two and you're like,
Yeah.
great, and now I can go home and maybe you have an editor that can take care of it. And so, like Joe Rogan, take for example, he just sits and has convos. He doesn't handle any of his editing. But if he just sits and has convos, then he gets to go home and be with his family, work out, have the be the UFC person that he is.
Mhm.
So for you, I know you recently switched to podcasting, a little bit more intense. So you've been doing a podcast for some time,
Yeah.
but you've recently added it to your strategy and leaned into it a little bit more. How maybe altogether podcasting from that you've done entirely, have you seen it help you become a little bit better at balancing out your personal life with having 2 kids and a husband and also being a real estate agent on the side and a business coach for real estate agents? Do you think do you think you could just like um let's say, would it hurt you to just drop it? Would it help you to lean into it more? What do you think? What have you learned that it's helped you with in that retrospect?
Well, it does come down to like who are we talking about? Look at the goals and what are they looking to accomplish. So I think that one thing that I'm noticing, and this made me very excited to get into more long form podcast type content. I think people are like kind of over the highly edited, polished content, right?
Mm,
And that's not to say there isn't a place for it because I'm not giving that away, right? Like we're still
yeah,
doing some of that content on my channel and it's going to perform just as fine as it always has.
sure.
But I think people are really craving authenticity. People are craving the let's sit down and have a conversation while you have your coffee. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
while you're drinking your coffee. And so and
Mm,
so like cheers, right?
cheers.
So when I'm thinking about that, how can we look at that and turn it into a benefit? A benefit for them, giving them what they want, which is more authenticity, but a benefit for us of like, okay, now we have the permission not to go ham on high production content that requires a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money. How can we sit down and do an hour of talking and 10x that into a month's worth of content? You absolutely can do that. And so for me, we've been doing this for a month or two. I'm still learning
Okay.
where we're going to have that 10x, right? So again, there's the aspect of like, let's be a little bit of a scientist about it. Like, we're not going to nail it the first time. Let's like create content, create these podcasts. And as we learn how this format settles into the overall content strategy, how can we leverage that into less film time in
Yeah.
general. And so that actually did happen this week, right? Where I reached out to or you reached out to me on Monday and you said, "Hey, okay, Steph, so we're doing our recording on Wednesday. Want to make sure you're all set. Want to make sure you have everything you need. Like you're good with the plan. How can I support you?" And I was like, "Yeah, so like I mean, what do we have coming up? Like
Yeah.
what do we have
Yeah.
in the pipeline for content? Like where are we at?" Because we batch a lot of the content. And you're like, "Yeah, I have a clip going out from a podcast that you had a guest with a couple of weeks ago." And I was like, "That is so funny. We did that a month ago."
Yeah, that interview was in February. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a month ago. It's just as relevant then as it is today, but we get to kind of get even more leverage out of it by putting that slot into a regular posting schedule that we
Yeah.
already have. And so from that instance, I was like, wow, that's really cool. And so what I want to get to is like right now we're filming twice a month because we're still learning this new cadence. And again,
Sure.
we're figuring it out. Like I was under no pretext that we were going to nail it right off the bat.
Yeah.
I want to learn this process. I want to do it the right way. I'm going to give it the time it needs to take. I can see this I can see this reducing a lot of the time that I'm filming, but getting even more content over time from it.
Yeah.
And I'm already starting to see that.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're
Yeah,
saying?
I'd say leverage.
Yeah.
It helps you leverage yourself because, like,
So let me actually give you a really good example.
perfect, said it.
Let me give you a good example. So I had my second baby in November of 2022. And I reached out to you in September and I was like, yo, we gotta like, start
Yeah.
getting this content. So we filmed, I think, 16 YouTube
Over the span
videos.
of, like, 2 weeks, because you came in twice.
Yeah, I did. And also I was like a mess. Like
Yeah.
the whole pregnancy, I was not like that was not a pregnancy where I could like bang it out. Like the first pregnancy I could have, the second one almost like killed me. It was not cool.
Sure.
It was not pretty. And so we had to take our time over the span of a couple of film sessions and we built up a bank of 16 videos. Is there a world where I could have come in for 1 3-hour film sesh and just
Mm.
had a conversation with you for 3 hours, which easily I can talk for 3 hours? And could that have given us 16 video clips? Absolutely. Absolutely,
And
that
short
could
form
have.
clips.
Yeah, and the reels and the TikToks and everything else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, like, the idea that creating a lot of content has to be very time consuming, very costly, very energy sucking is a complete fallacy because look at what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
This is going to create 2 podcast episodes for us because I'm going to ask you for this too. That we
Sure.
can put on my podcast
Absolutely.
because it's such a great
Yeah.
content. Like you're asking really good questions and it's relevant to both of our audiences. Think of how much short form content this is going to get, and we're also going to be able to parse this out into like shorter, meatier videos if you decide to.
Yeah.
Like it's a no brainer. We have to start thinking in terms of like how can we scale? And scalability means putting the same or less effort in for a greater return.
Mm.
It doesn't get better than this type of format.
Yeah, I think you touched on it. It's scalability. I think
Yeah.
ever since I started my business, I'm like, how can I scale this? How can I scale this? How can I scale this? And I've chopped a couple services,
Mhm.
started new services, lost money on those services, went back to doing other things.
Yeah.
But one thing I think all of us want is to scale something that is reasonable.
Well, and I want to acknowledge you for that, Zeke, because when you are starting a business, the first 5 years of it, truly, in my opinion, is just testing. And it's
Yeah.
just being curious and trying a bunch of things and seeing what sticks. And the businesses that fail are the ones that go all in. And when they decide they have to pivot, they look at that pivotal moment and think, I failed, and that's my ticket to get out.
Mm,
And you don't do that. You say, how can we continue to try things differently until we get it right
yeah.
and find the perfect combination of, of value for everybody involved?
Hmm.
And you have to have that
Yeah.
that mindset when you're a business owner. And again, it's taking responsibility for learning what is going to work for you. And so for you, if you're looking to work with YouTubers or like, these people who have audiences who are on that content treadmill and they're sick of saying the same thing and creating
Yeah.
the same kind of content and they just want to talk about the thing that they're passionate about. Like this is a
Yeah.
no-brainer. It's a no-brainer, but they have to have the responsibility to try something new.
Yeah.
They have to take responsibility to say, you know what, this maybe isn't as sustainable in this season, or it's just not working as well as it has the last 5 to 7 years. I need to try something different.
Mm, yeah. Well, you pretty much just pitched my personal brand right there.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to educate people on is why podcasts can really help you if you're already creating content. So last thing we'll talk about really quick is our families. And so a funny story or a funny background is that we pretty much had our kids very similar.
Yeah.
And she has 2 boys. I have 2 girls.
Uh-huh.
I think mine are always like 2 months younger than yours,
Yeah.
right? Pretty much on the dot, which I think it's just interesting. So when we come in and film, we always talk about what's the latest with your kids. Is there any funny stories and whatnot? So can you tell me what's the latest funny story that you've had with your 2 boys? Anything interesting that you just like? It could be a low moment of like, they didn't sleep at all last night and they were I have a couple funny ones I'll share once
Oh
once you
man.
give me something.
Well, they definitely don't sleep. They don't sleep when you want them
Yes,
to,
when
right?
they don't want you to.
So I feel like we're both lucky because like we've got a pretty sweet setup. Like our kids like so grateful to have healthy
Yes,
kids.
absolutely.
Like no complications thus far. I mean, knock on wood, hopefully that remains the same. But uh, going to 2 kids may as well have been going to 10.
Hmm.
Like it is so much more work having 2. And the other day I was I love your podcast with your older kid with
Yeah, with
Holland.
Holland. It's
So
crazy.
cute. So my older kid Grady is very similar. He's going to be 4 in a month and he is so cute. He's very grounded, very curious, always asking mom, always
Mhm.
asking questions and always so observant. And so the other day I was putting Graham down, my 1-year-old. I was putting him down and Graham is like a spitfire. He's the opposite of Grady. That kid has not been chill a day in his life. Like he's just like a psycho in a really fun way. And he anywhere we go, he has like this gravitational pull to anybody who's paying attention.
Yeah.
They just get sucked into his energy because they're like, "Oh my gosh, he's so sweet." And then he turns around and he's like a spitfire. He's
Yeah.
nuts. So I'm putting Graham down to bed. Graham's screaming because he doesn't want to go to bed because he knows Big Brother is playing out there. But I'm like, "Bro, you need to nap. You're
Yeah.
insane." And so I'm putting him down and I'm singing him the little song that I sing them before they go to sleep. And he is crying and I go out and I close the door and Grady's like, "Man, I think he doesn't like your voice either, Mom." He's on the other side of the house.
He took the time to walk over there
He's
and to share his thought process.
he hears Graham crying. He hears me singing. He's like, "That's not it, Mom."
That's
Like,
so funny.
but it's like that always. Like there's
Mhm.
never a moment of just like being just of peace.
Yeah.
And like that's not to say there's not love happening at the same time. Like it's
Yeah.
all love and funny and also, but I'm just like, wow, these kids humble you.
Yeah. Oh, humbling. Every time I pick up my daughter from daycare, she goes, "Oh, it's Dad. Where's Mom?"
Yeah.
Every time. And then sometimes she'll even cry on the way home because Mom didn't pick her up.
Oh
And
yeah.
I'm like, great. Awesome.
Yeah.
I just make it a point to try to pick him up every day. That forces me out of the studio. So like I make it like I put a lot of effort into it. And then as soon as I get there, I'm like, all right. Was it worth it? But it always will be in the long term. But I think a funny story for me. So this isn't really a funny story. I think it's more of I like to pat myself on the back for it.
Okay.
So
I'm here
recently,
for that.
yeah, I like parenting sharpens you, just like podcasting does. And so my wife's going out of town, okay, and she's actually going on a Disneyland trip with her best friend, and they're taking my oldest.
Okay.
Okay, so they're going like a girls' trip, even though everyone in my family but me is a girl. My baby is also my 1-year-old now is also a girl, but she wasn't going. I was staying home with her.
Uh-huh.
So this weekend, I was gonna do baby duty, and up to this point, I mean, you know this, co-sleeping is a thing, and balancing out every kid's a little bit different on where they need to sleep and up until a point. So, my second is much more of touchy and has to be touching us while we sleep. And so she would sleep in the crib, and like at 1 a.m, we just couldn't put her back down, so she'd
Yeah.
have to come into the bed with us, and so she got used to that. And we're
It's a
both
slippery slope,
it
my
is
friend.
a slippery slope. And so for all your moms listening to this, I'm not trying to start a war about opinions on how to parent. This is just what we did, and I learned from it.
Yeah.
And she's going on this girls trip, and my wife was like really worried for me because usually 2 parents can kind of be like a wall for
Right.
someone to move out. So she made me move a mattress out into the living room, lay it on the floor, and just in case to be ready if she's not going to sleep in the crib.
Can I just take a minute? What an amazing mom. Because co-sleeping, like you do have to make sure that you're like taking
Yeah.
the steps to be safe. Like
Yeah.
kudos, you guys.
Kudos. So
You guys
she knew what she was
it's-
going on.
Oh yeah, you guys got this.
Okay.
Yeah.
So she's going out of town. In the back of my brain, I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna.
Oh,
I'm
no.
Gonna, I'm gonna put my
cut that
foot
out.
down, and I'm gonna teach this baby to sleep in the crib. That's what I did. So I didn't tell my wife I had this pre-planned. I said I figured this out
Oh, no.
accidentally. So the first night she goes, I like tell her I'm gonna move the mattress out. I didn't lie. I just said I was planning on kind of doing it
Right,
just
right,
in
right.
case, like maybe I just absolutely just fell and
Yeah.
failed at this. So the first night, I just make this commitment. I moved the crib into the other bedroom, and I had to take off the doors. It was like this big construction kind of thing.
And she's gone.
She's gone. I'm
Oh
home
my
alone. This is the first night. I move her in there. I kind of instigated her to buy the baby monitor that she wanted because I'm like,
Uh-huh.
let's just do it now. We have the money to do it. I set up the baby monitor, the new one.
How
Got
old
this
is
also.
baby at this point?
Oh, she's 9 months.
Okay,
No,
okay.
she's not a newborn.
So
right
so
now.
you're like,
No,
we're
no,
doing
no.
this.
This is to the point where like
Yeah.
this baby's big enough to make our bed feel like there's a person sleeping in
Right,
it.
right.
And obviously, if a baby's in your bed consistently, it just hurts your relationship with your wife. You just don't have that.
Yeah.
Like we watch TV in
And
bed
you
a
know
lot.
what? You don't even have to. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
personal
it's a-
choice. You're like looking to
absolutely.
your family and what's
And
going to work for you guys.
So I made this commitment. I moved the crib in there, and the very first night, it's like it's getting to bedtime. I'm like prepping emotionally. I'm like gearing myself up. I'm like I'm gonna have to fight tonight, so I'm like setting myself up to like watch a scary movie or something to kind of keep like to drown out the noise if she's gonna cry. Because we did sleep training with our first, and the first week was hard, so it
Yeah.
was a lot of crying. I put her down in the crib, made it super dark, and ever since then, sleeps through the night. Just instantly.
Kids, dude.
And I'm just like, oh, okay, I figured it out. She just needed to be in her own room in the dark with the sound machine. Never once cries through the night anymore.
Wait,
It just worked.
she was sleeping in your room in a crib.
I just moved the crib in a different room.
How often are we creating our own problems with these kids?
Exactly.
That is so crazy. But you know what is so funny? The same thing happened with my baby. Because he had crazy colic. And
Okay.
and I would try to bring him into our bed. And he would be fighting us the whole time because
Yeah.
he's like our don't touch me baby. Like he doesn't want like
Okay.
he is
Different reasons to bring him into the bed.
he
but-
is a touch baby, but he like he doesn't like anything like on his body. He really needs like space.
Okay.
And so he wouldn't stay in our bed. He wouldn't stay in the freaking bassinet. And finally, at 4 months, I was like, you know what, kid? Like
You
nothing.
get to that point.
No, I know you're and that was
Yeah.
where you were too.
Yeah.
Where I was like, nothing's making you happy. Go to your own bed.
Yeah.
Go to your own crib. Go in your own room. So, and I didn't even have the nursery set up. So I set up the nursery, put him in there. I never even had to sleep train him. He was like, that's all I wanted was to get away from you
Yeah.
for 12 hours so I can
Yeah.
sleep. And he never had a sleep regression. Didn't have to sleep train him. Put him in there and it
Very
was
similar to
fine.
me. I think the reasoning for mine was she couldn't see us while we were sleeping.
That's exactly what it was.
But I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Oh my God. You guys are like gearing up for battle. And then
yeah.
she's like, I just wanted my own space.
I just wanted my own room and literally naps, everything. Everything works out smoothly now.
Yeah.
She's like the best sleeper in the whole house. Sleep from like 8 to 8 every night.
That is bananas.
And it's just because that one weekend, I just made that commitment.
Okay, what did your wife say when she got back?
Well, I didn't make up a story, but I was like, the first night I fell asleep and I forgot
Isn't it
to
funny
go
how
get
you're
her.
like, okay, hang on,
'Cause I
hang
didn't
on.
want to make too big of a scene because I wanted her to be excited about it.
Right, but you're scheming.
I was
She's in
scheming a little
Disneyland
bit.
and you're at the breakfast table over your coffee, like your baby's probably still asleep, and you're like, how am I gonna
how am I gonna
you're
word
scheming.
this? Because I'm at the same time, I'm like, I want to share every minute of this with her
Right.
because I figured it out and I
But the
solved the big problem.
presentation.
So yeah, I think I said that the first night I accidentally figured out what it was, and because I didn't sleep in that room, I slept on the couch. I fell asleep watching a movie. And
Did that work? Is that what happened?
And up until like recently, I told her.
Oh
I
my
was like, I don't think she
Wait.
didn't. She didn't know I was planning it for this weekend. I think I told her that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna let her sleep
Yeah.
in her crib.
Yeah.
And so I actually moved the crib over earlier.
Yeah.
She didn't know that I was, pre-planning this for like 2 weeks.
That's
I was like,
amazing.
I'm just gonna do it. It's just me. Might as
Yeah.
well just do it while I'm home.
And she's already in a moment of transition too.
Totally.
Because like, oh, mom's not there. Like, oh, it's a little bit different. Oh, I guess this is what we do now.
Yeah.
And that actually probably worked out really well.
Yeah,
And it was easier for
super
mom,
thankful.
too, 'cause
She was
mom
mad at
didn't
me
have to
that I
have
didn't
the-
explain it to her. Well, she wasn't mad, but she was like,
Oh, yeah.
I
well,
can't believe you did this and I didn't. I couldn't figure this out and da 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 da. And
Dude, kids are bananas. But here's the thing. When you have a baby who's under 12 months old and you're the mom, I know that like obviously you're on the journey, right?
yeah,
But our biology changes
sure.
and our brains are fucking psycho. Our brains are
Mm,
insane. Like I was looking back to those first 12 months and specifically the first 6 with Graham, and I was like, not me. Like something happens to your brain chemistry where you're just like so like taken over by like motherhood for one. You're immersed in motherhood, but also like the hormonal changes. Like you can't logic, like you can't reason when it comes to your baby. When it comes to your baby.
yeah.
And so like one thing that Graham does is he I wonder if your baby does this too. Have your girls started fighting over toys?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh yeah. So Graham instigates it. My younger one instigates it. And he's one. And I'm like, "You're diabolical."
Yeah, that
And
mine doesn't do that.
oh, she wait. Not just wait, but just
But
wait.
yeah,
He because she's my kid is a bit older than yours now. And this is kind of
yeah.
newer where he'll like snatch a toy and then he'll go "Ah!" and like crawl
Jolt.
away with it and like wait for Grady to come chase him. But it's almost like funny to him.
Okay.
And he'll do the same thing to Grady where like if Grady says, "Graham, don't do that." If Graham is touching him, Grady will be like, "Don't touch me." And then Graham will go like
Yeah.
and just like keep touching him. And so this will happen where Graham like will have something and he's used to his older brother taking it from him.
Yeah.
And I literally cannot take something from him. And it's not because I'm not strong enough, it's just that he's stronger because he's my
Mm,
baby. And
yeah.
so like he'll have something and I'll be like, "Graham, give it to me, give it to me." And it's not that I'm being like a rollover parent, but like I literally can't rip it out of his hands or something or like do that because then he starts crying and then I feel like a terrible mother. And Bryce will see me like struggling and he'll come up behind him and just pluck whatever's out of his hands and Grandma will be like, "Oh, okay." And like it's no big deal. But I cannot do it like if it's something that he either doesn't need or if he's just like not like getting his diaper changed because he
Yeah.
wants to like play or something.
Yeah.
It's just different.
Yeah, I'm just now entering that world of sharing toys, and my youngest, I don't. Maybe she is more smarter than I think.
Oh,
Possibly,
she's definitely the
she's
smart
probably a
one.
little smarter, but she'll just always want what the other has.
Yeah.
And the issue is that we just had a birthday for the 1 year old, so there's all these new toys, and my
Uh-huh.
older wants to play with them,
Yeah.
but then I ultimately have to say, well, that's technically her toy.
Right. And now it's like now you're learning like those boundaries
Yeah,
and
so
those are
that I
different.
think that's where the conversation started to come a little bit. I'm like, well, sorry, you have a boatload of other toys sitting on the shelf
It's
that
not
are
good enough. She
yours.
wants those.
She wants those. She
Yeah.
This morning she broke the tambourine that was my youngest, and she's like, "I'm sorry, I broke Eden's toy," and well, she's like, maybe we can get a new one. I'm like, I don't think so. Maybe we.
I don't think so.
I'm like, you broke it. Sorry. I was just trying to teach that ramification
Right,
of
right,
like you
right.
just got to take care of other people's stuff and
Yeah, it's hard.
parenting, man. All right, so that was I think it's episode 3. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Yeah. So this was Stefanie Lugo. Where can they find you and get connected with you if they want to follow you or what you're doing?
So kind of hard to find me sometimes. Stephanie Lugo, just search it. You'll find me on YouTube there. You'll find me on my website at stephanielugo.com. If you want to hang out on Instagram, it's Bryce and Stephanie.
Gotcha.
So put the little like spell it out in your show notes because it's my husband and I
Sure.
since we're a
There'll
husband
be
and
a
wife
link in there
duo.
too. Another thing about long form, you can put links now.
Yeah.
Well, not now, but they took it away for shorts. You can't
Oh,
do it with
really?
shorts. It's not links anymore.
Oh, that's silly.
Yeah, I don't know why.
Oh.
YouTube's just trying to.
Well, they're being curious. See.
They're being curious. They're testing. I know people get mad
They have
at
a
them.
scientist mindset.
They probably do. Their algorithm, whoever's making their algorithm is smarter than all of us. So,
Uh-huh.
all right. Well, thank you. I'll see you all later. Bye.